Welcome to my channel. My name is Daryl, and I'm currently a captain on the Airbus A320 and the 321. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Dassault Falcon 50 by Contrail. I'm going to walk you through how to get the aircraft started, how to program the FMS, and some tips and tricks along the way. And for the first time ever, I have an epic fail going into Salzburg, and I somehow managed to crash. We're also going to take a look at Jetcard at our virtual airline, see how that's doing. And if this is what you're looking for, please stay tuned. Before we head out to the aircraft, I thought we'd take a quick moment to go over how the company is doing since we founded it in the last episode of Jetcard. Now, if you would like to jump straight into the Falcon, down in the description below, you will find I have broken down the video into chapters so you can rapidly and easily find the information you're looking for. So I'm often asked, what is the direction of the company and how do you see it going? And we now actually have a little bit of data we can look at. So as you see, we've got 14 aircraft and 13 pilots. And the fleet currently consists of, as you see here, I now have 2 Airbus A320s. We've got 3 Sovereigns, 3 Citation, 1 TBM that no one's flying other than me. I just picked up the Falcon, which we're going to fly today. We've got a couple Phenoms and 1 Honda jet. So as you see here, almost every aircraft is kind of accounted for, which means we probably need to add a little bit extra. But as of right now, everybody who wants to fly can fly. So let's take a look here as we come over to analytics, and we can start seeing now that we have a little bit of data, what we're looking at. So we can either break it down, as you see here, by aircraft specific tail numbers or type. And as you might expect, the Citation X is a real big hit. We've got 48 flights in it. It's generating some pretty good revenue. Next is a Citation Sovereign at 31 flights. Once again, still getting a lot of revenue out of it. And we have 2 Airbuses, only 7 flights, but you can see they're really good money makers. But the downside of that is if they don't fly, they will put you out of business really quickly. Each of those, I think, are around 80 or 90,000 a week just in their leasing fee. And of course, the Dassault and the Honda jet down there we just picked them up yesterday for the VA. And of course, no one wants to fly the TBM other than me. All right, but let's take a quick look at the financials. So, and this is the reason why you have to be kind of careful. As you see here, I have about 127,000 that's coming in revenue, and 60,000 almost is going out in expenses. So we'll see how this proceeds. If things continue the way they're going, where would I like to expand to next? Well, right now we've got about 2 weeks of cash on hand, and I had actually hoped to show you all a little over $1 million, but now the bills are actually starting to come due. So this is actually just my actual route map. And if we actually come over to the live map, you can see we got a couple guys flying there in the gold, and I'm getting ready to go. But I've been thinking of our next expansion, and this is all subject to change. And I would like to add really great community that we've developed so far. We don't need to be the biggest by far. I just enjoy flying with all the pilots we have. Very friendly group of people, and I think a really good mixture of some pretty experienced simmers and some brand new. So everyone's kind of either communicating on the messages tab within the virtual airline or on the Discord. So it's actually a really great community. What I've been thinking about for the next expansion would probably be, I'm leaning towards Asia. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of flying that's out there as you're looking at the live map right here. The other option would potentially maybe be West Coast, since at our home base here, as we go into the company here, you see our home base here in Salzburg and in Fort Lauderdale, which has given us access to America and Latin America, the Caribbean. And of course, this centrally located base pretty much gives us all of Europe. There has been a suggestion for the Middle East, which I think would be good. It'd be very easy to transition planes. As you might remember from the last episode, planes just don't exist in the ether. Especially if you're getting them new, they're only going to come from where they're made at. So if you're getting any of the Cessna products, the Citation, the Sovereign, they're coming from Wichita here in the middle of the country. which means I have to get them all the way to Europe. Guy's been great about that. The Airbuses come from Toulouse, France. The Dassault is here in Paris. And so going all the way to Asia would be cool, be a lot of flying, but that's okay. I think that could be actually really kind of fun too. So the idea may potentially go to the Middle East, someplace, maybe down here, Israel, that would give us access to this part of the map, and then help us leapfrog over to Asia, or quite frankly, potentially going, I think, maybe down towards Shanghai. It might be an interesting place to put a base, which would give us access to Korea, to Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and then into Laos and Vietnam, and then, of course, the rest of China. So no hard decisions made on that yet. Like I said, it kind of depends on how many people probably end up joining the VA this week. Like I said, I've been really happy with people joining in. Great community. And the real challenge for me, of course, is just trying to keep the air fleet kind of what we'd call in the airlines right size, right? Where we don't have too many aircraft that are sitting around doing nothing. But obviously we need to have enough aircraft that, in fact, everyone can fly what they want to fly when they want to fly. And as I mentioned here, as we look at the financials, I only have about 2 weeks of cash available before I am living underneath a bridge. So that is the overall plan and strategy. Next aircraft up, it hurts me to say this in my heart, but I think the next aircraft up, at least for the airliners, is going to be the 737, probably the Boeing business jet. There's been some interest in that, and heck, don't tell anybody, even I probably wouldn't mind flying it. And then the other thing is, I think I might need to, as we look at the fleet here, with only 3 sovereigns and 3 citations, I may end up increasing. I think the phenoms seem to be good for now. Probably pick up one more Falcon, I would think. We've got one based here out of Europe. I might pick another one so we can take it to America. And then I'll just have to see. Once again, I do ask when you do join, if you come here to bases, I ask everyone puts themselves in a base. And just so y'all know, it doesn't matter. You can fly in any base you would like to fly out of. You don't have to do anything different. You can be based in Salzburg, but see an aircraft in Fort Lauderdale, Asia, Middle East, wherever it's located, and just pick up a trip there. There's no difference. Doesn't matter for money or anything like that. But it does kind of help me get an idea of how many people kind of prefer to fly in that area, so I can kind of get the, once again, that nice buzzword, right size the fleet for each base. So right now, I like to stack a little cash, keep the operation financially viable. Next thing, I'd like to expand. Boeing business jet, another Falcon, maybe more citations and sovereigns. Anything else that comes out potentially that people would like. There's been a request for the M600 or the M500 from, whatever company that is that just came out. And other than that, I think that's wanted to show you that stuff. So let's just head out to the aircraft and let's get going. The plan, of course, is let's go to our trip dossier here. We're going to take it from Salzburg here down to Greece, around 700 miles. Interestingly, and we're going to see this, I actually want to see how this works. The Falcon actually has Jetcard compatibility, say that 3 times fast, compatibility built into the aircraft. So let's take a look at that and see how that works and see if it actually does all the stuff as we go into dispatch here. We'll go ahead and generate right here. We're going to generate the flight plan, the OFP. If we've seen that before, that acts almost instantaneously. What I'm interested is do we need to use our phone here to order all of our services? Because there's something that says ground services with Jetcard. So what I'm going to do is we'll log in the aircraft, do it at that point, and then see if it actually does all these FBO services that we normally would have to go back into Jetcard to do. But anyways, I'll point that out as soon as we get out to the aircraft. So see you out there. All right, everybody, we are down in Greece getting ready to do our walk around. And I know a couple of you already are going, wait, I thought you were in Salzburg. And well, I was, but I have some words of advice. If you're going to use ChatGPT to change your Moza force feedback yoke profile, maybe you should know what you're doing. And if you do that, you might want to test it before you go flying. The other thing is, which I probably could have survived, which was if the yoke gets disconnected mid-flight, do not, and I mean do not, as people probably are starting to chuckle, re-engage it. or resync it back up, because what ends up happening is it goes full aft yoke and rolls to the right, and then full forward yoke and rolls to the left. And as the force feedback yoke reconnected with Flight Simulator, I found myself upside down, like I was starring with Denzel Washington in the movie Flight. So anyways, we do have the opportunity, though, to check out one of the unique features about this aircraft, which is the ability to attach your own tug. Now, as we're looking at the nose gear here, this link is what makes this work. Well, so you're going to want to make sure that you disconnect it in this state, and then before you go flying, you reconnect it, because if you don't, the aircraft's going to meander off towards the grass because you actually have no control over the nose wheel steering. So once again, just disconnect it. We'll remove the chocks, and then we'll just go ahead and back up here a little bit. Stand up, and then what we can do is you come up to your screen up here, press the black button down below. It attaches the tug, and then you just simply, you see the arrows forward and back on the left one, left and right on the other one, and then you can start. Click it once, click it twice, starts going faster. Reverse, whatever you would like to do. Really kind of a unique feature, and I know a couple of you are probably starting to think like, well, I probably would never use that. I'm not going to role play, and I'm not going to bring it into. We'll get rid of the tug. We'll get rid of that, and then we'll come back over to the aircraft, and we'll reattach this link before I forget. So as I was saying, I know some of you will probably think, well, I'm never really going to do this, and I totally get that. But the nice advantage to it is, I'm going to remove these covers before I forget as we walk around the other side, is that it allows, you can use it inside the cockpit. So you don't have to use like GSX or any other tugging surface. You can just, from the cockpit, do it yourself, because you have the ability to take that torque link and connect it and disconnect it. So I walked around the other side here, and that's just so you can see that there is no fuel truck here, because the next feature we are going to check out is the fueling. Now, I may or may not use that tug. I can guarantee you I will never, ever, and I mean ever, do this in real life. As soon as you come up here, you get, as soon as you open up the fuel cover, you will get the fuel truck. And then what you want to do is simply click on the port there. We're going to turn on all three pumps, turn the red button on, and now you see the aircraft will begin to fuel itself up. So once again, as I mentioned, I will never do this. And that's because I have a significant amount of PTSD from doing my own fueling when I was flying medevac. Unfortunately, every time I do that, it tends to open up that baggage compartment, because it would be 3 a.m. coming back from a medevac mission. It's like 20 degrees below zero. It's 20 miles an hour wind. And then you have to actually go out to the fuel truck, warm it up, drive it to the helicopter, and then stand outside as you're fueling the helicopter up. So when I tell you I have PTSD from fueling aircraft, I surely do. All right, so we're on board the aircraft here, so let's go ahead and we can get rid of this. Is just a sign, doesn't do anything for us. Let's take a look at the EFB, as I pressed the wrong button. So let me pull up the EFB right here. We actually have a Contrail app for our EFB, for the native Dassault EFB. So as we go into the ground operations, just so I can show you if the torque link or anything, that is how you would disconnect it right there. So you want everything like nice and clear. Let's go back. Weight and balance. Now you see a brand new option that we have, which is we can import it from Jetcard, and we can start the Jetcard services. So I'm going to click that. And what we should start to see is the aircraft, or is it already fueled up enough? Let's see. Let's go into Jetcard right now, and you can see it has already fueled it. I guess we had enough fuel in there from before, so it's already done our fuel order for us. It's already brought our passengers out for boarding. And if you wanted to, you could, of course, just do your normal ask for catering, ground power, not required. In any event, we can get rid of that. So that is a unique feature here in the Contrail app that I'm hearing more and more aircraft are going to have this feature built in, this Jetcard interconnectivity. So we've taken care of that. Let's close that out. Navigraph, I don't use Navigraph here, folks, and that is because I have discovered that when you use the Navigraph charts and within the Asobo EFB, it starts creating a slow memory leak. And over time, I'm not sure these are the right words, it starts degrading the sim performance. And I had used them on the way down here. I'd heard about this before. I just kind of forgot. And I came down here, and by the time I got down here, I was not even experiencing micro stutters. I was getting full-on stutters maybe for like a half a second, like every 5 to 10 seconds on the way in. I literally thought I was going to have a crash to desktop as I came in here to land. So I'm not even opening up that anymore. I have a program. I just work it off my off my iPad that sits on my desk. So I'm going to leave that alone. But if you want to, just go in there for your very first time. You can use your QR code if you haven't logged in, and then we can use those charts inside there. So enough said. Anyways, here's some global options here. One of the things I'm just pointing out here is this show user hints right here. We have it on. I'm going to leave it on for this flight. And the reason is that if you're new to the aircraft, as you start, let's say the engine, if you take too long to get the fuel in there, and I'll do it so you can see it, you'll actually get a small little hint in the upper window. Kind of a cool feature. As we come over to sounds here, Copilot call out, he does airspeed alive, 80 knots, V1, rotate, positive rate. Very hard to hear. So I'd like to see an adjustment to that. And then the trim clacker. I, once again, am going to leave it on. I will probably suggest that you turn it off, or at least you probably will want to, because it's got the old school. It sounds literally like a machine gun, and it almost never stops for a while. So the only thing maybe worse is flying in a 7.3, which I've done a lot of jump seating on, in that metal trim wheel spinning around for like 2 hours. Totally drives you. If you thought my impersonation was bad, it was actually pretty spot on. It's just super annoying. So we'll leave the clacker on, enough said. Auto window blinds, that is, if you want to do any work in the back as a passenger, you're creating some cinematics, these blinds will open and close based off of how the sun is coming into the aircraft. You can leave it on, off. I don't think it really matters. Here's some things that do kind of matter, though, is your flight director. You'll see once we get the aircraft started, you have the V bar, or you can have the X bar. The X bar is what the 737 uses, a vertical line, a horizontal line, a little square in the middle. You just try to keep the square within the crosshairs there. I just prefer the V bar. That's just me. Choose what you want. And then here, autopilot control labels. So let's go over to, we'll look down here. I leave them on for now, and that is because, as we zoom in here, you can see here, we have yaw dampener, autopilot, out, vertical speed, indicated speed, course, and heading. These are click spots that you can use inside the aircraft, because the autopilot is actually down here. And if you're trying to turn the course and heading, it can be a little bit difficult, especially if you want to stay heads up. And so they have created these click spots on the PFD and the ND for you to use. I don't have them memorized yet, and so I leave these on. So other than that you might want to leave that on. Barosync and enable fast IRS alignment, I choose. And then you can, if you want, you can fly from the co-pilot seat or the FO seat. And then if you are using the, so I come back out here, if you're using the co-pilot feature, then in the captain seat, you will find someone. But as you know, I like to be the only hero on the board of the cockpit. So me and me only. So, and I'll be flying from the captain seat. All right. The other thing here, before we forget, is because we called for, did it come? Or it did not. All right. So let's come back in here. And that is because I'd messed up earlier. But when you use the weight and, okay, thank you. Let's hit weight balance again. There we go. When we use the SimBrief connection, it refuels the aircraft. It also brings out a passenger van. So just be careful about that. That when you come back into ground ops and make sure the van's not here. I did that the very first time. I did not check, didn't really think about it. And then, because I'd never asked for it, I was taxiing down on the taxiway, and I looked out to my left, and there was a van right there going sideways with me. So don't do that. All right, so let's get this aircraft started. Forgive me if you guys have heard this rant before. I will not use the included checklist, which it does. I'll show you that in just a second. I will tend to use flows. That's what I use in the airline. That's what makes the most amount of sense to me. It took me a while to get my head wrapped around using flows versus these typical checklists, but they are available. So if we come once again back to the EFB, spend a lot of time here, and go into aircraft, you will find that there is not only a checklist, but there is the interactive clickable points that you can use. So it's nice. The reason I don't use it is because a lot of times you're going to find yourself, and here's just an example. If I come into the overhead, just before you start the APU, it's going to ask you to put the number 2 booster on. Well, why not just turn them all on? But if you use the checklist, what ends up happening is you turn that, you come back, you go up, you go down, you go over here, you go over here, you go back. It just doesn't make any sense for my brain anymore now that I've completely been in the airline. So I'm just going to use a procedure that hopefully accomplishes everything. We'll probably see me forget something because I have not actually wrote my own checklist for it. Because normally flows, you're going to do a flow and then you're going to highlight a couple things. So we'll see how that goes. And I will just tell you right now, folks, this is like my 4th, 5th flight in this aircraft, and I am not a subject matter expert based off my landing so far. So I've kind of planted them on pretty firmly. Anyways, let's just get the aircraft started. So very first thing we do, we're going to come to our overhead panel here, and we're going to come to the very top, and we're going to make sure that this is in the norm position, the flight norm position. And then we're going to put battery 1, battery 2 on, and then we are going to do a bus tie everything together. From there, we are going to, once again, as I said, we can turn all of our booster pumps on right now. We'll work our way down. Now we could turn on our window and probe heats, but I'm going to leave that off for now. We're going to put our nav lights on because we're on board the aircraft. We're going to skip these lights. We're going to turn our fasten seatbelt sign on. We're going to arm the emergency lights. We'll turn on our no smoking sign. And then we're going to turn on the passenger master light switch there at the bottom. And from here, we are ready. Basically, it's going to be a quick, easy aircraft to start, folks. Ready to start the APU, which is going to be on our right-hand side right here. If you forget the procedure, it's written right there for you, but it's going to be master switch on, gen on, and start. Pretty quick startup. And if you do not turn down your overall sounds, it will be obnoxiously loud once we get that bleed on. Hopefully it shouldn't be too bad for you. So we're just going to wait till, almost right about here. We're going to see the gen load pick up immediately. Lets us know that it is now supplying electrical power to the aircraft. It is. And from here, we can turn our bleed on so we can start our engines. And from here, straight away, turn on our IRS alignment on the FO side, and same thing on our captain side. And from here, we're going to go back to our overhead panel and we're going to turn on AC bus 1, AC bus 2. And then you have to click these buttons here, EFIS 1 and 2, and the radio master. Coming down from this point, then we can put on our pitot heat and our window heat. And then we come back down here. And as we're doing this, we're just double checking that everything looks good. It's nice. Nothing to do down there. We'll come down to our center cockpit. We can test our lights on our annunciator panel, and then we can do our fire test. And from there, we can turn on our moving map display. Come down to the FMS. Click on each radio, and then it will run through its self-test. And at this point, we are ready to start doing FMS programming. Now, this is a really weird FMS as I'm talking here. So let's go ahead and put moving map on, confirm our barrel ref, and let's come back down here. So this is still going through it's going through a self-test process. So FMS 1 on the left-hand side, FMS 2 on the right-hand side, they apparently do not talk to each other or auto-fill what needs automatically. Autofill automatically. Use words. It's times like this, folks, I regret not being a communications major. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit enter. Now, it will bring in from SimBrief. So we see this LGZA back to Salzburg. Just click here, the 1, then hit enter. Remember, folks, you're going to want to hit enter just about all the time. It's caught me out a couple times. Then we're going to hit select, enter. Now we can do our flight plan, which will be, we're going to depart, hit it again, enter, We want runway 34. Yep. Enter. Now we want our departure, which I wrote down so I would have to see, which is this OSDE2D. Hit the closest button near it. Might have to hit it again. Enter. And select. And folks, enter. Now we have it in our system for our departure. You can see up to 420 feet. We go ZAC intersection 7.0, intercept, a couple fixes. Now, and I'm going to show you this so you guys can see, so you don't keep making this mistake I do. We're going to come over to our autopilot panel. We're looking at our ND. You can see, for some bizarre reason, it defaults to the lower left-hand side, ADF1. I don't know who uses ADFs ever, but we are not going to use it here or anytime I'm flying. Don't ask me about that PTSD episode with ADFs. So we'll come back down to our autopilot panel, and I'm just going to check this HSI mode, and I like it to be in the ARC mode, which I've just done. And then I'm going to hit the course button, and we're just looking at the lower left here, and we get ADF2, NAV1, that will be for our ILS, NAV2, and now we have FMS1, and if we look at it, we see we got, because we're doing a NAV departure, a SID, 0.7 miles, 420 feet. Excellent. Now, here's the problem, folks, and I did this on purpose just so you can see it. When I come back over to FMS2, we hit enter, I hit enter, we select, enter, we just lost. You see our next destination is Osdes or whatever, 36 miles away. It completely knocks out your SID. So you can just go back and rebuild it again. I just wanted to point that out. Like, they just don't talk to each other, not even well, they just actually don't. So once again, we can go through this really quickly so you can see it, because it's a unique system. Departure, enter, select, enter, and then while we can do this, while we're here, we can do the arrival, enter, we're doing the Rasta, enter, select, then what do we want? Rasta, select, enter, approach, enter, runway 15, enter, ILS, enter, select, enter. All right, so, and we see it here on our nav display screen. That's great. And then we come back to our PFD ND, and we can see at the bottom we have still held our SID. So it just took me a couple times, folks. What happened to my flight plan? And so, of course, it's a new FMS. So that's how you maneuver around the FMS. It's actually fairly intuitive to use. The only thing I have not figured out, and just be perfectly honest with you, is how to get the VNAV capabilities to work. I've seen it. I just can't seem to get my head wrapped around it, because we do have the ability to do a VNAV profile. So in any event, what I like to do is I'll just put this on nav, and then it just brings up our next waypoint, distance and time to get there. And at this point, we are actually ready to start the engine. So let's come down to the center screen so I can just point out what we're going to be doing here. Is at the very top we have N1, ITT, internal turbine temp, N2, and then pounds per hour and fuel, all that kind of good stuff, T's and P's at the very bottom. So the procedure is going to be, we're going to go on the overhead, we're going to press the red start button, we're going to come back down here, and we're going to look at N2. This aircraft, it measures N2, and once it gets to 10, and it's going to happen within maybe 1 to 2 seconds, it goes very, very quick, we'll come down here and click the red button. So the order, how you start this aircraft up, is 2, 3, 1. That's according to people who apparently have flown it. Once again, I'm not typing it. I am way too lazy to be doing all this manual work. All right, so let's come to the overhead, and we're just going to click this red button here. So we click it, come down to our center. We can see we're already at 10%. I'm going to wait just a second so you can see the hint. So those are the hints. Occasionally, I don't know, I found them to be a little bit redundant. At one point, I got one taken off saying, hey, you need to check the fuel tank and the aircraft weight, which I'd already done. Anyways, enough of my complaining. All right, so we've already had the light off of the engine. It's already stabilized, so we'll come back to the overhead. We'll do number 3. Wait for 10. And I hit the wrong button, and we'll go here. Back. You would think since I've got them labeled on my Stream Deck, I could do this better. All right, so we got the light off. It'll start to roll back here in just a second. Increase build in the N1. Of course, you're obviously looking down below and checking that oil pressure, oil temp is looking good. All right, nice stable start. And for our last engine, same process. Already at 10. And there you have it. So I'm just going to go back to this EFB. I'll go back to our app here. I find these. Was this section here? The user hints for me. I don't like them, but your mileage may vary. All right, let's come back to the overhead and do our after start. So the after start is going to be transfer pumps on, bus tie back to normal. We've got our windshield heat on. While we're here, we can put, which I should have done before we started, anti-collision. We'll put our taxi and wing lights on. We'll come down to our center pedestal, and now we have to decide for our aircraft altitude. Now, this is, we're not using say intention, so I'm just going to go straight up to altitude here. I'm just going to use, I don't know, 32,000 feet. You can use your middle mouse button and it'll change it. Or if you would like, and you have a Honeycomb Bravo, the Honeycomb Bravo works on here as well. So you can use your Bravo, you can use this if you'd like. So I'll use my Bravo for light touch control, but we'll just roll this all the way up to 35. We got 35,000 here. We're going to pan down, and now we're going to put our cruise altitude, and we're going up to 35. So we'll put our 35 up there. Eventually. All right, close enough for work. We're going to come down to our pedestal again, and we are going to put on our Mach trim. Let's go back to our center pedestal, and now we're getting a fueling indication, which I think is probably an issue with using the Jetcard, by the way. So, is there anybody out there? Yep, he is still out there, but he is not refueling up. So, take it for what it's worth. We will just come back here to the EFB. I think I've seen this once before. How do you get rid of this? Weight and balance. Okay, click it. There we go. And I'll just use this button here, which is the instant fueling. And let's see here. Get rid of the no fuel. All right. So once again, we have some slight issues with this, but let's just go ahead and press on, and let's see if I bring my fuel truck with us, because I'll be honest with you folks, I don't want to have to do this. Again, you're going to see here as I start bringing up power, it actually moves really, really slowly, and this is something you can move forward here. I'm just going to pull out and do our thing. It does move really, the engine spool up really slow, and you're going to find out that, or see, we'll see a little bit more as we do our approach. Once you start getting below like 70% on the N1s, it's really, really inefficient. All right, let's go to cinematic, and just to see, oh, we are bringing the fuel truck with us. Isn't that nice? All right, so what we're going to do here is improvise, adapt, overcome. Let's go here. Let's hop outside the aircraft because no one needs to be in charge. And see why the fuel truck is following us. So this is not a Jetcard issue. This is a them issue. And look, it's opened itself back up again. All right. So that's closed. That's closed. And let's... Who wants to go flying? Right. What I was trying to say is that these older engines like this, they just take a long time to spool up. you'll see it in the Airbus, just it's not, from full idle to full power is about 7 seconds. So it's actually something we kind of reference when we make a stabilized approach, which is to make sure that the engines are set. But you're going to see once we get down like 30, 40, if you start getting slow in this aircraft, which I have done, it becomes a little bit problematic. A lot of drag on this engine or on this aircraft, and getting those engines spooled up at a low power setting can be a little bit tough. All right, so we're just going to taxi all the way down here to the very end. And we have one more thing we need to do, which I thought we actually had a taxiway down this airport. And that is we need to set power. And I'll show you that once we get to the very end. So let me just get taxi to the very end here, folks, and then we'll get ready to go, and I'll show you what I mean, because there's one more thing we need to do for takeoff. All right, everybody, we are on the runway, ready to go. The last thing we need to do is set aircraft, weights, and flaps. So what we're going to have to do here is, let's just look right down here, and there's this white little old school clipboard, which I think is kind of cool. We'll zoom it in. You can see we can sync the bugs, sync the weight, and so now we should have a gross weight of 2,900 pounds, or 29,900. That checks here right next to that gear handle. It's set our V1, VR, V2 speeds, and it's telling us we are going to need flaps 20. I'm hitting all the wrong things. We'll just bring in our slats, our flaps, and on the way down, just as an FYI, we shut off our APU. All right, so we are now set and ready to go. We'll just wait till we get the flaps all the way down. All right, and I think we are ready to go. It's also, and we're going to see this when I have a second here, it's going to set our climb power or max takeoff power. But anyways, we are fully throttled up, and let's go. As I grip my yoke here, I'm like, oh, is it actually working?
Airspeed alive.
Thank you.
80 knots.
Check.
1.
Check.
Rotate.
Flipped it right up to about 10 degrees here.
Positive brake.
Now, the only problem is here is you see the command bars are down there, which is I don't like to do that too much because we don't have good indication. So I'm just using it for lateral guidance. So as we start to accelerate here, I'm going to start bringing up the flaps. And if we come down here, I don't want to use autopilot yet here. You can use a climb setting. And what it's going to want to do is going to get a pitch for 250 knots. We'll bring up our slats. But if you do that, it will end up having to kind of level out. I don't necessarily know if I want to do that. So I just kind of keep the climb in as we slowly accelerate to 250 knots. The command bars should kind of come up, and or we meet the command bars as we start to level out. So it takes a little bit of work here. And I'll start using trim. So you get to hear that nice clackety sound. Now let's go ahead and engage the autopilot. And we look at here, we're looking at FMS climb because it's going to hold 250 on the climb. It's going to hold 300 on the descent. And autopilot yaw dampener, and those are located, go back down to our pedestal. Autopilot yaw dampener right down here. So that's where you would actually, if you were want to do it manually. I'm using, once again, my Honeycomb Bravo. So at this point, it has a fairly decent FMS. It'll basically track it. Sometimes it's not the most responsive, which is what you might expect with an aircraft. in this kind of era. And what we're going to do here, it's going to hold it all the way up to 250 knots, all the way up to flight level 350 or whatever we have selected. So once again, if we were using sand tensions, which we will do for some of these flights, but for here, I don't want to miss calls and try to talk over anybody. Anyways, I think we're probably already at about 30 something minutes at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'll bring you in on the approach, and we'll talk a little bit, at least how I work it, and we should be able to conclude this with an ILS into Salzburg. Really nice, pretty scenery down there. Super happy. I know I said that when I started this video off, but I really like the scenery down in Salzburg. All right, folks. So in order to, actually, I guess you can, if you zoom in there we go. You see the wind shades are down a little bit because the sun is coming in that side. So we're actually closing it a little bit as we're speaking. So there you go. That is the automatic sun screen feature. Ta-da! Leaving on a high note, folks. All right. I will see you all here in just a few seconds for you. All right, everybody. Just wanted to check in with you as we start getting the aircraft prep for the approach and arrival. So the very first thing we're going to want to do is get the ILS all set up. And as I look at my chart right here, I'll probably pull it up as we get a little bit closer so we can see it on screen. But we still have a little bit of ways to go. So what we want is a localizer frequency of 109.9. and a final approach course of 153. So let's come and take a look down at the autopilot. We can see down here on our nav, actual and preset, we've got 109.9 on nav 1 and nav 2, and now we just need to get in a frequency of, or a final approach course of 153. So as we're looking down there at the bottom of the PFD, we're going to click our click spot there for heading, sync it up. Then we're going to go into heading mode so we don't get off course. And then we're going to come down to, once again, the course button. And now we're looking for nav 1. And we can either use this course button here, or you can drag it this way. From here we can kind of see it. So we're just going to dial in a course of 1. 53. Drag and pull it. Not as good. There you go. 150. Our final approach course is going to be just inside Atchit, which is one of our spots, and it'll be at 4,000 feet. So we need to start thinking about our descent and how are we going to do this. Well, first of all, let's go back to nav before we forget. And we need to go back to course and get in, once again, FMS, nav, blinking FMS, out, autopilot, yaw, dampener up there. Sorry, we're looking good. So now we need to start thinking about when we're going to descend. And so as you can see here, we are just under 100 nautical miles away from Rasta, and we need to be at 12,000 feet, and we're at 35,000 feet. So we need to lose approximately, with big math numbers, approximately 23,000 feet, and the rule of thumb is going to be 30 miles for every 30 miles for every 10,000 feet we need to descend. So roughly 63 miles out, something like that, 64 miles out, call it even 70, just to round it up. Since we're not using our VNAV capability, we need to start thinking about our descent, but then how should we actually descend? So we have a couple options here. One will be, if we look at our autopilot, which will be, we can descend via just a descent right here, or we can use vertical speed. And I like to use vertical speed to start this off because we don't have auto throttles. We're going to have to control everything by ourselves. So now, what is the descent rate we're going to want to use? Well, if we come over here, I'm sorry I'm bouncing around a lot, guys, but I just want to show you a couple things for some rule of thumb here. If we look over by the FOs where I'm circling with my mouse pointer, we see our total air temperature is negative 19, but what we're really looking at is our true airspeed at nights. We've got 474, and over here, 464 is our ground speed. Actually, that's the one we really need to pay attention, is going to be your ground speed, not your true airspeed, but your ground speed. And roughly, what you want to do is divide that in half. So 464 divide that, 46 divided by 2 is going to be 23, roughly. So, and then add a 0. So 2,300 feet per minute rate of descent. So about 23, divide that 464 by 2, so you end up with 232 times 10, 2,300. So roughly 2,300 foot per minute rate of descent is going to keep you on a 3-degree glide path. Boy, words are hard. 3-degree glide path on the way in, and we're about 86 miles out, or 82. So I think now is probably a good time to start. So what we're going to do here is we're going to lead with throttles, because you're going to control it. So let's pull it back to around 82, 83. And what we're just going to look for, if we look at our airspeed indicator, you see how slowly that slows up? Boy, once again, should have been a communications major. As we start to slow up, then we can come over here and we can either choose the descent, which will put us at the cyan speed there around 250, and it'll gradually bump itself up, or we can just kind of go over to use vertical speed, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to select vertical speed. We look at our PFD, we see a vertical speed flashing, and then we'll use right on the click spot here, we will just dial down 1,000 feet to start. Now, you notice what we did not do is put in a bottom altitude. Check it out. And that is because when you're in vertical speed, you can just climb or descend at will. And that's why we're getting that altitude alert. So what we can do is let's just start dialing it down to 12,000 feet. So you can use vertical speed without making any adjustments in the altitude set. In fact, I was able to use that on a VOR approach earlier in this aircraft, where I just kind of kept, it was in visual condition, so I just kept the FMS or the nav source all the way in, flew a nice DME arc all the way around. And then as I came up on the final approach fix, just dialed in a vertical speed of 700-800 feet. You don't have to worry about a bottom. I can just put in the missed approach altitude. So I know I'm talking a lot of different things right now. Just you have a lot of different options, but you also need to be aware once you're in vertical speed mode, it will take you off that altitude. Now that we've dialed in an altitude of 12,000 feet, which is the bottom there at Rasta, it will do a, let's say like CYA capture, whatever. So it will capture the altitude at 12,000 feet coming down at this rate. Now we're going to start falling behind here if I only come down at 1,000. And so we see the airspeed's not climbing up on us too much. So once again, I'm going to start to increase the descent a little bit. Or now that we're slow enough, let's go ahead and go back to our autopilot and let's just go ahead and press descent. Changes the mode to descent 0.80. And so as you see, the magenta, or the cyan triangle is popped up to 0.80 on the speed. But now we're really starting to come down at a pretty good rate here, almost 6,000 feet per minute rate of descent. So we don't want that. That's like that's a bit much. Let's go back to vertical speed. And then we're just going to dial this all the way back up to more like 2,300. So this is the downside. That's kind of why I wanted to show you of going into that descent mode. It really starts a fairly aggressive descent. Now I could have added a little bit more power. We could try to play with it, but once again, I feel like I'm more in control when I'm, especially on descent, when I'm using that vertical speed mode. And just so we're clear here, airspeed indicator, standby. Once we get our altimeter, and down here, which I kind of missed the first couple times, is of course our PSI. So you see we're coming in around 2,500. Checks up here 2,500, and then we can just kind of modulate if we want. If we get maybe a little bit too much or too aggressive, we can add in a little bit more or decrease our descent rate on the way in. So that's how I like to do it. I just like to express, once again, this is technique. You're going to see a lot of different people do things a lot of different ways especially in something like this that's going to involve a little bit more pilotage and flying the aircraft versus just letting the computer do everything. So the goal is just to kind of get to where we need to be, which is going to be our next fix is Rasta, which is the start of the arrival. Then after Rasta, we will get down to eventually Salzburg, and I think that's 4,000. Atchit is 4,000. There's an intermediate fix along the way that's like 8,000. So I'm not going to walk you through all that because this flight's going to be long enough as it is. So I'm just going to once again cut you back out here, and I'll probably bring you as we're getting kind of close to Atchit, because I think we're going to have to either do a procedure turn and get ourselves kind of lined up. And I'll just kind of show you how you do that. Really not that big of a deal. And we'll talk a little bit more about kind of slowing the aircraft down and getting it kind of configured. But I enjoy this aircraft. I think we'll be flying it more here in Jet Sim. If you guys would like to see more of this kind of manual analog flying, let me know down in the comments below. I'm not really sure what people like. I tend to kind of gravitate towards these kind of aircraft because I think they're really fun, because it actually involves a little bit of work, but I know maybe if you're not a pilot, it can be kind of overwhelming. So, but let me know if you like this, if you want to see this or the Sovereign or the Citation, what really interests you, so I can kind of tailor it to what you guys would like to see, not necessarily what I always like to enjoy flying. So anyways, I will see you back in just a few seconds. All right, everybody, if we just look out our left-hand window, there is Salzburg right there. So we're just kind of heading downwind. We're just going to heading on direct towards the Salzburg VOR. We're making our way down to 4,000 feet, but we do need to get our landing numbers in, and we're going to do the exact same way we did it for takeoff. So we'll come over here. We will grab our approach numbers, and we will sync our bugs. All right, so we've got our bugs synced in there. So we're looking around 120 or so on the approach speed, 112 or so landing. About 3,000 feet to go. We have 13 miles to get there. That's roughly 12 miles. So I think we're looking good on the angle here. And speeds under control. Our next speeds we're going to have to be is below 200 for our first notch flaps, and then 190 for the flaps 20. And I have my air brakes out. If we look down the autopilot, you can see I have just deployed the air brakes out to give us a nice descent rate here, about 2,000 feet per minute, without starting to accelerate. So using the air brakes is something you just plan on using on the way in. It's a very useful tool. I also have, let's see, our approach chart right there. That will work for us. And you can see what we're going to do is we're going directly towards the Salzburg VOR that I'm circling with my thing here. And obviously we can't make a tight turn just like that. So 5,000 descending 4. So what we're going to end up doing is flying here, flying outbound, coming back around, intercepting, and coming back in. So that is the procedure. Now, I don't know if we'll make the full procedure approach and turn. We might. We'll just see what it takes to get the aircraft separated. So we can also let's go use the heading knob, and we'll just kind of dial in. Oops. Actually, I just think it's easier to use than the honeycomb. All right. So as the speed continues to drop here, what I can do is back the autopilot, put in, and we'll just see where our speed kind of stabilizes out. And look, probably about 355. Kind of head out 355 and then make the U-turn, come back around here. All right, so a little bit fast. So let's start getting our slats in. That's what we got to start thinking about, is getting the aircraft configured to land. Now, I mentioned this before. You don't want to pull all this power out because it will take a while for the aircraft to not only spool up, but the aircraft is really slow to accelerate. So what I might do is one more time here. We'll come down to the autopilot. We'll put in our speed brakes. Definitely want to be thinking about slowing down as we're getting into that procedure turn. You want to be making that too fast. We'll put in our first notch of slats. It's going to throw out a little bit more drag for us. And I am now going to put us into heading mode, because I don't want it to actually turn directly in towards the VOR. That's close enough. So we'll go outbound 355, and a lot of things are happening right now. We get those air brakes back in. You see, just doing that, get a little distracted. I'm down to 150 knots. We'll bring our power back up a little bit. And as we look at that chart, we see we're like a little bit close, so if we might go a little bit wide. So I'm just going to go a little bit further out here, further to the right, so as we make that turn, standard rate turn, we can come back around right back on course. We no longer need to be in FMS mode. So let's put that chart so we can see. We want ADF2 nav. There we go. So we're set up 13 miles away from the runway and increasing. We like that. Airspeed's coming up on 180. We start slowing back down, taking our power back out, because our next speed is going to be 190 for flaps 20. 180 looks good. And if I was really on the ball, I'd be starting a timer as I got around the VOR there. So I'm just going to give us a little bit more time to slow down, get ourselves stabilized, and now we will turn all the way back around to the left. See if we can intercept. Just looking down here, our PFD 150, 60 or so. So get that intercept angle, and we're going to put in our next notch of flaps. Expect to pull in, we'll start pushing a little bit more power, because we're bringing a lot more drag in. Our next speed is 190 for the gear, so we're looking good there. And the goal, especially when you're flying these types of approaches, is try to get yourself configured early, if you can. Now, one thing I know that's being addressed in this build is that there's a lot of drags for flaps 48. So I've been kind of holding off on that till the very end. All right, so let's take a look here. Let's get an intercept angle going. All the way, just a little bit here. All right, so how are we looking? We're at 4,000 feet. We've got our second notch of flaps, and the next thing we do is drop gear out of below 190. That'll be good for us. That's going to throw a lot more drag out again. And then we're just going to try to, there's probably about, use this as a reference, around 120 or so for our actual approach. All right, looking at our chart there at the top, coming right in on course, perfect. Like I've done this before. At this point, we really don't need that chart up anymore. See that little, see that? Hopefully it comes through. See that little glitch? That is using those Navigraph charts. So if you can, try to avoid it. And if you're going on a long flight, definitely avoid it. All right, so we are all set. Airspeed looks good. If we look to the one last thing we have to do while I was busy yippee-yapping is come down here and press the approach button. And now we see LOC in white with heading, Alt, we're holding that, and then in white, glide slope. So we now at least have them armed, but not active. You're always going to need it. You would never capture glide slope before you capture LOC. FYI. So that's why I want to get this intercept angle, and you always kind of want, we look here, see how that diamond, the green diamond, is above us or above the level flight. That's what we want to see. We don't want to try to capture it from above. We're capturing it from below. That's perfect. And as it comes down, about 1 dot, right here. We're going to go ahead and put our gear down. And now we're going to try to start bringing a little bit of power back. And as we glide slope intercept there starting to flash green, we're on the glide slope, and we're just looking at our speed 155. So let's put in our last notch of flaps. Up, and you can see the last notch brings in a lot of drag. So just checking out our airspeed trend. We'll level off here around 120. Airspeed's good, on bloke, on glide slope. Now, be prepared to be underwhelmed, or as my daughter might say, I'm pretty sure this landing's going to be mid, no cap. And if she actually listened to the stuff I produced out here, she'd be rolling her eyes so hard right now, she might be blind. All right. All right, 2,700 feet. Minimums are like 25 or so. Little fast. You can take that maybe just a little bit fast and get behind the power curve, so to speak. We will just bring out a little bit of throttle look around 80 or so. It nosed over a little bit there. Just bring out a little bit more power. Actually have to do some pilot stuff. And as I said, prepared to be underwhelmed, have not gotten the feel of this plane yet. Knots fast, we're okay with that.
400, 300.
All right, autopilot. Oh, get a little bit of wind there.
Glide slope. 100. Glide slope. Glide slope. Glide slope, glide slope. 20, 10.
Well, and that's how you don't land. Wow, so that was really interesting, folks. I like to do everything perfectly for you. As you saw, start picking up some like wind. I don't know if that was a tailwind or a wind shift, but blew me a little bit off course. And then I just could not get that sink rate down, so I went less than mid. It went horrible. But we are here. So I am, as we just saw, I definitely don't have the feel for it. Anyways, let me go into here. That should complete our, let's go into Jetcard here really quickly here. I bet you it will tell me I am arriving. I am. That was just bad. Wow, that was shockingly bad. Going to need to need to work on my landing in this. Anyways, folks, so that's how you that's how you do the approach. That's not how you do the landing. So having said that, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a long one. We will clearly fly this more. Worst landing I think I've ever done. And I will catch you all in the next one. Take care for now. Bye.